Okay, so all right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second Castle workshop. We're very excited to see everyone in the audience today. My name is Chirong Ho. I'm an assistant professor here at the Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence, and I'm going to deliver the hopefully short opening remarks before our first presenter takes the stage here. So, in this second Castle workshop, I want to say a few words about our agenda today and deliver some of the opening remarks for us to think about as we explore this exciting year of generative AI and many of the applications it's enabling for science for good, but also to ask a little bit about some of the difficult sustainability questions that arise in the use of these powerful but at the same time very expensive applications. And then finally, I'm going to say a few words about our organization, the Project for Composable, Automated, and Scalable Learning. That's what CASTLE stands for, so you have a bit of the context around us. Right, so on to the workshop agenda. We have assembled a group of 16 speakers and panelists over the next 2 days, and it's going to be divided as 8 talks today, and tomorrow we will have the panel session and the remaining 4 talks. So you can see the lineup of all of the speakers here, as well as on our website. And now, let's say a few words about artificial intelligence to motivate, the theme of sustainable AI that we're thinking about in this workshop, right? So we've all seen, I think, the news cycle around what people are calling generative AI and its ability to empower applications from code assistance to drug design to creative writing and generation, and that's only scratching the surface of what is possible over here. And if we think about, even from the academic perspective, a very respected university, Stanford, mentioned that they would think that approximately 13% of occupations have a primary task that is related to writing, and this is not even the other forms of content generation, such as art or music or other creative endeavors, and the total wage bill of these occupations is over $675 billion. How do we think about how do we measure the costs and benefits of these foundation models? They don't even think it's measurable by traditional metrics like gross domestic product, GDP, or price levels. So this is something that people are thinking about even very seriously at the economic level. And, if we come back and just look at the more immediate impact, right? Everyone is probably familiar by now with the ChatGPT application released by OpenAI, and it broke a record for the fastest growth in user base for any internet application ever. And the graph is just showing, compared to some other familiar names such as Instagram and Spotify, how much more quickly ChatGPT hit that first 1 million users, and now it's measured in the hundreds of millions today. But at the same time, these applications are not perfect. If they were perfect, then we wouldn't be having a discussion today because they'd have probably taken over the world, as people might joke. But if we look at, what can come out of this kind of application, right? There are useful applications where people have found ways to generate, for example, marketing copy. It's certainly a stressful cognitive task for someone to write marketing articles to go out to an audience, and having an application that can produce some of those messages for you so you can tailor it is a big help. But at the same time, there is much potential for abuse, and what's being shown here are 2 examples of ChatGPT output, where the left is what I call maybe the useful output, and the right is the problematic or harmful output, where you can ask questions in a way that would give an answer that may get you in legal trouble. It may also get you, in, if not legal trouble, at least social trouble here, right? Just explain what's happening on the right side. The user here is asking, who's a good scientist, and please tell me this based on their race and gender, and it's able to actually produce code that would be considered problematic or highly controversial. Okay, so, and the other controversy around ChatGPT is really the speculated cost of running or maintaining one of these applications. So I want to just walk you all through a little bit of a pen and paper, back of the envelope calculation just to see how expensive these things could be, right? So if we take some of the known facts around training these very large machine learning models, let's start with something that's much smaller than ChatGPT, something that was reported to be about 1% of ChatGPT's size, right? And this thing, to actually fully train it one time, cost about 200,000 kilowatt hours. So let's put that in more layman's terms. It's the amount of energy or carbon that's emitted by 2,000 cars traveling by 100 miles. So like maybe from here to Dubai and back, basically, 2,000 cars, one time for 1% of ChatGPT. So if we then think about what happens in the maintenance or production of these models, research and development is not something where you do it one time and it's done. It's an iterative process. You need to test new designs. You need to perform a task that we call hyperparameter optimization. These are the tuning knobs that are required before you can release a model into the wild. And of course, you need to be upgrading it with new data. You know, part of the secret behind ChatGPT is that they're always feeding it with new data. They're always retraining it on the queries that people are sending in every day. So all of this costs energy. And if we try to extrapolate, right, training 1% of a ChatGPT 100 times, that's about 20 gigawatt hours. How much carbon is that? It's about 2,000 average homes in the United States times one whole year. Okay, so that was all something that was tiny. What happens when we scale it up to a ChatGPT-sized model? Well, we don't know what the size of ChatGPT is because OpenAI has never publicly disclosed it, but we do know that it is their version 3.5 of their GPT series of models. We do know that the third version of the model is 175 billion parameters, and we can probably assume that the version 3.5, aka ChatGPT, is larger than GPT-3. So, applying all of this back-of-the-envelope calculation, you arrive at a cost. If we want to retrain this 100 times over the lifetime of the model, that's about 1.5 terawatt hours of energy. That's an entire city times 365 days. So the question now arises, is that an environmental dead end? What are the sustainable alternatives to doing something that's so energy intensive? And what role can infrastructure, open source play in mitigating some of these things? And that leads us to kind of the purpose of the CASTLE project, what we call the Composable, Automatic, and Scalable Machine Learning Project, which is a consortium of open source ML projects. We aim to integrate with one another, focusing on these three topics in order to drive sustainability and efficiency in very large AI applications. It's a community of open source developers from academia, in industry, researchers as well, from Carnegie Mellon University, Stanford, UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, a couple of companies, and of course here at Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence. Right. The CASTLE project has been around since roughly 2018, with the majority of our projects having been released in the intervening years, and with more being announced soon, right? And you will actually, some of our speakers in the next 48 hours will in fact be talking about some of the CASTLE projects here. Okay. We also want to make an announcement as the CASTLE community that we have a new project coming in called Rampart. That's an MLOps system that allows easy provisioning of custom infrastructure from templates. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially you can think of it as the underlying AI operating system that undergirds many of the CASTLE projects that we have, and we see it as a necessary platform to enable the large types of generative AI, in other words, ChatGPT scale, to be efficiently and scalably hosted with a combination of various technologies that the researchers and from companies and academia are working on together. So this is being released as open source this month here, February 2023. Okay, and what are we actually trying to accomplish here at MBZUAI with the CASTLE research, right? As I've indicated, it's really about the sustainable infrastructure for AI at scale. Sustainable, in multiple definitions of the word. Sustainable in terms of being energy efficient, being carbon efficient. How do we produce something that's on the level of ChatGPT, but doesn't cost an entire city's worth of energy per year in maintenance costs, right? And then how are we going to, but it's also about sustainable in terms of the people and processes needed to produce this. Not every organization has as much funding as OpenAI, and we certainly don't want the benefits of this technology to be limited to just very large organizations or startups that can bankroll things indefinitely. So with the ambition that we want to make this sustainable infra for AI at scale, the vision here is that the Rampart AI operating system, which is part of the AI operating system project here at NBCU AI, serves as the infrastructure for the composing, the hosting, and basically the live-in, the cohabitation of different components of sustainable AI, which come in the form of Castle open source components. And then at the university level, we make this accessible through our computer labs and students' personal computers. And that's just the first stage. It's something that we want to take out into the broader world once this has been prototyped and trialed over here at NBC UAI. Okay, so with that, that is the end of my opening remarks, and I would like to now invite Dr. Ebtisam, who is the director at the Technological Innovation Institute, to take the stage and deliver our first presentation of the day.
Speakers, Tyrone and Ebtisam, for the great talks. What a great way to start off the workshop. Right? So in this talk, we're going to talk a little bit about the practical applications of large language models, in particular the risks and rewards when it comes to applying them in critical business processes. Right? So just a brief introduction. We're from a company called Petchum. We were founded from Carnegie Mellon University in the USA back in 2016 on a mission to unlock the future of AI for organizations everywhere. And we are a platform provider that helps businesses automate and augment their processes using AI. And we're also the company behind and are the proud contributors for several of the Castle open source ecosystems, as you see here. So today you'll be hearing from me. I'm the CEO of Petchum, and as well as Victor Miller, our senior product manager. And we'll cover a couple of topics. We'll describe this next generation of AI. We're going to talk about the impact that we expect to see them bring to businesses. And we're going to be introducing for the first time the new platform that we have been working on at Petchum, complete with a demo at the end. So we're currently experiencing a major paradigm shift when it comes to how AI is created and how AI is applied in practical applications, right? And this is driven by large pre-trained models that you heard about in the previous talk. For example, models like GPT-3, Bloom would be examples of large pre-trained language models, right? And these models are becoming ever larger every year, and they are trained on massive amounts of internet data from many different sources. And once they are trained, just a single one of these models are able to be adapted to many different diverse downstream tasks. For example, sentiment analysis, object detection, or question answering. And so, overall, larger AI models trained on more data, able to do more diverse tasks, right? So by scaling up these models, by training them using more parameters and using more data, they start to exhibit some surprising characteristics which are not seen in previous generations of AI models, right? And these are three of the key characteristics that are different, right? So first, they exhibit what we call few-shot learning, meaning that they can actually pick up and learn how to perform new tasks with very few training examples, very little supervision by humans. Sometimes they'll learn how to do a task just with no examples at all. They also enable AI to be used using a prompt-based interface, which means that you can just give these models an instruction in plain text, in plain language, and they'll understand what you want it to do, and they'll understand how to perform these different tasks, right? And third of all, they exhibit consistent generation of human-like content, including text, images, and well, video's not there yet, but they'll get there very quickly, right? And as mentioned, these characteristics were very, very publicly demonstrated by ChatGPT a few months ago. So even though the development of these models have been going on for quite a while, they've really entered the public lexicon in the past few months, right? And if we just pay attention to the public interest in AI in general, the release of ChatGPT really caused this interest to kick off, right? And we're really at this inflection point right now when the excitement and awareness of AI is at an all-time high. So, and in terms of businesses, these large models can have a lot of profound impact on businesses by transforming them into AI-native organizations, which are infused with AI automations and augmentations, Right? So a couple of examples of some practical use cases for these models. Businesses can achieve better customer experience by employing these models to automatically respond to customer inquiries and complaints and be responding instantaneously 24/7, right? Businesses can make more informed decisions by really understanding sentiment about their products and about their brands at a scale that was never seen before. And companies can streamline their internal operations by automating and taking care of a lot of manual day-to-day work, such as taking and disseminating meeting notes. Right? So, but I think one of the most exciting changes that's brought on by this new generation of models is it actually dramatically lowers the barrier to get started with AI in any business, right? So here's an example. So traditionally, when a business wants to implement AI, they would have to employ a highly technical team of data scientists and engineers, and they would work in tandem with the stakeholders who are subject matter experts in the business processes and to understand the business problems deeply, to curate and manually label large amounts of data sets, and to train models from scratch. Right? And this process is often leads to very long time to value when it comes to getting value from AI. It's difficult to manage the dynamics between different objectives between so many different stakeholders in the process, and it's also dependent on there being available very highly technical AI talent, which is still very scarce in today's world. In fact, a report from the US White House in this past year stated that over 80% of enterprises who attempt to implement AI in their process actually fail to do so because of a lack of skills both in their internal workforce as well as in the external labor market as well. Right? And how these large models will change this landscape is that now instead of having to train every model from scratch, subject matter experts can simply prompt a already trained language model, just using plain language, and that will enable this model to perform different tasks that are valuable in whichever organizations they are working in. Right? And by doing this, companies can achieve much faster time to value. It is a much easier process to manage because it doesn't involve as many stakeholders, and it also de-risks the failures of this entire process, right? And I think what this really means is that AI is no longer restricted to just the few organizations with the most technically advanced employees. Okay, so the future of AI in businesses look bright with this new generation of large pre-trained models, but it also comes with greater challenges and deeper pitfalls. And I think it's really important to understand what some of these are so that we're not just going forward headfirst into deep water, right? And you know, there are many challenges and pitfalls, and the three that I want to talk a little bit more about is these three, right? So accountability, data privacy, and of course, the sustainability of these models. So first, accountability. As we have seen, AI will make mistakes, and they are improving rapidly, but they will always make mistakes, right? We will never reach a state where an AI is producing the exactly correct outcomes 100% of the time, all the time. And this means that mistakes always need to be accounted for when they are adopted in businesses and in organizations. And you know, some ways to do this are to establish a framework when adopting AI that, you know, AI outputs can be safely constrained so that more risky content cannot be generated in the first place. We can involve humans in the loop to check the critical steps of the process where accountability is very important. And overall, prioritizes augmentation of processes over fully automating processes so that the role of AI is in helping humans who remain in the driver's seat in the end of the day, right? Okay, so next challenge is data privacy. So large pre-trained models actually introduce new vectors for data leakage that need to be accounted for. And these new vectors are not found in traditional SaaS applications. So here's an example of how that can work, right? So you, as an organization, might have a bunch of different users using a existing pre-trained model that's running by a third-party company in the cloud. And all of this usage data that goes to this third-party cloud could be used in training and updating this model into newer versions that incorporate all of the usage data that they've been sent from all of their different users. And this introduces a new path of leakage, where some of this learned data from existing usage could be leaked in future queries and future usage of this model. And this is a very real risk. So even OpenAI's terms of use explicitly states that they, unless you tell them not to, they will use their usage data and they will use the data that you send them to train their models and to improve and to learn from the data that you sent them, right? And it's even caused some disturbance in the waters with other companies. For example, Amazon noticed there were some reflection of ChatGPT's outputs that mimic their internal data, right? And what this means is that every business on their AI journey needs to pay attention to these additional risk factors when it comes to data leakage and data privacy. So the third challenge, of course, is sustainability. We heard a lot about this already. The current generation of models are driven by this long-term trend of increasing model sizes and, in general, increasing footprints in terms of number of parameters, the resource consumption, and data set sizes, and that's been occurring over the past 5 years. And it may take a lot more resource to train the model in the first place, but even in deployment, just to run one instance of GPT-3 after it's been trained takes an entire DGX A100 machine from NVIDIA, which can cost upwards of $200,000 US dollars, right? And what this means is that we really want to answer these questions, like how do we maximize GPU utilization so that the investment into infrastructure is not gone to waste? How can a business keep up with the future models, which can grow even further in size or grow further in their resource demands? And in general, as usage of AI picks up, how do these models and infrastructure keep up with the user demand for AI? Right. So this is the last slide before we get into our demo. Just wanted to introduce the new platform that our team at Petrium has been hard at work on for the past several months. And the goal of our platform and what we strive to do is to be the easiest way for businesses to adopt this kind of next generation AI and adopt AI on their terms, right? And this means reducing the barrier to AI by leveraging large pre-trained models while offering features that help businesses avoid some of the common challenges and pitfalls, right? So, we want our platform to be very easy to use. It combines no-code and natural language interfaces that really enable a business to engage everyone in their organization, not just the highly technical data scientists and engineers, to participate in creating AI workflows even without a lot of technical experience and knowledge, right? It comes with a large set of plug-and-play integrations that really help to reduce the time to business value when bringing AI into an existing organization that will make it faster to achieve some of these 3 points that we brought up before, like better customer experiences, more informed decision-making, and streamlined operations. Right. And underneath, underneath this surface layer of the graphical user interfaces, we provide a set of large pre-trained models for various different types of common data modalities, including text, images, and audio. And these models are optimized for quality and resource efficiency, and are able to be fine-tuned and customized for each specific organization's unique use cases. And lastly, underlying all of this is an infrastructure management layer, which includes a large number of the castle projects in our ecosystem. And in addition to really making management of infrastructure simple, it makes it possible to take this entire stack from the interface down all the way to the infrastructure layers and to deploy them in very flexible scenarios, including if you just simply want to start using them quickly on a cloud service, or have this entire thing deployed in a secure environment on premises, on the machines that you own and control, and have leverage over these issues and challenges like data leaks, right? Okay, and with that, I want to invite Victor up to the stage where he can give a demo of our platform in action to address a business use case.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so excited to show you guys what we've been working on here at Petro. So to motivate the demo, we are going to go through a churn identification, response, and alerting scenario. So if you're not familiar with what churn is when customers leave us for a different option. And so for any company to grow, they need to retain the customers that they have. So in this scenario, we'll be a multinational internet service provider, and the team that we're responsible for is the customer experience and retention team. And overall, we basically need to keep 90% of our customers year over year to make sure that we hit our growth targets and our customer acquisition costs are as low as possible. But the problem with that is we get thousands of incoming emails a day. So when customers reach out about issues that they have or potential reasons why they might be leaving us, we might not have the ability to understand and act on those types of concerns. The emails themselves are extremely random because they're human generated. So there might be some common terminology that emails may have, but overall, they don't have to because humans are creating them. And if we wanted to actually go through and have somebody read these thousands and thousands of emails that come through every day, we would need teams on the upwards of high double digits to low triple digits to actually go through, read, identify, and make actions on these. And if we wanted to build a machine learning system for ourselves to do this, it would take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and then the result not guaranteed to be worthwhile. So overall, this is a really big challenge. But when we look at what an ideal solution would be, we want to make sure that it's personalized. So emails that are coming in, we want to have a human level of understanding of what's contained, what the issue is, and any sort of response that we have, we want to be able to have empathy like a normal human would do. We also need to make sure that any system we build is customizable. So not only this first iteration of the system, how important it is to make sure that that is successful, but we know that our products are going to update. We know that how people talk about things will change. So our ability to update the system is extremely important to keep meeting future needs. And we also need to make sure that the system is scalable. So this means that basically, like, as we add more customers, the system does not need to change, and it stays as performant as possible as workloads increase. So here, we've got an example email that we might see from a potential customer, or from a customer. So in this email, we've got a person who has been a customer for a long time. They're wondering if they have any discounts for loyalty. And they're now bringing to our attention that their service has been spotty, and if we can't offer a better price, then they may try to leave. So this is a classic example of what a churn email might look like. So what I'll do is jump into our platform. One second. Thank you. We're really excited to unveil the new Petrum platform. So this is the first public viewing of what we've been working on. So excited to show it to you. So the first step that we want to do is be able to classify the different types of emails that come in. So what we can do is create classifications just using natural language. So what we will want is 3 different classes. A good example might be something where an email just has a question, but doesn't have a complaint. Or an email that has a complaint, but doesn't indicate churn. And the one that we're most interested in is emails that indicate churn. So we can put our example email in, and running this, we should see that this email, or this classification, returns as indicates churn. Has a complaint but does not indicate churn. Okay. So this is an example where we can work through the different types of prompting. And because we're using natural language, we can basically change the different types of classes. And let's try again. And so if we were doing this with like a standard machine learning model, each of these iteration cycles would take an extremely long time and would cost lots of money, as we've seen with the sustainability pieces. But what we can see is we just made a few different changes to the prompt, reran it, and now we're seeing that we're getting the expected result of indicates churn. But we do want to test this a little bit more, because we want to make sure that the classifications are going to be what we expect kind of going forward. So we can remove these last 2 sentences and just input, I've been a customer for a long time here. Do you offer any discounts for loyalty? So if we run this, we expect that we'll hit the class has a question, but no complaint. And we can see that that worked as we intended. So now that we have a classification model that is working as we want it to, we now want to take the next step where we can actually generate a response. So again, what we'll do here is just use natural language to describe the email response that we want to the customer. So here we'll say write an email that is professional and compassionate. And we want to acknowledge the customer's concerns and promise that somebody will follow up soon. And we're going to use the input from the first step here. So we'll start with the email that we had originally started with, and let's check out the response. All right, so our email back, we get, thank you for being a loyal customer of ours. We value your loyalty and apologize for the spotty service. The spotty service is the issue that Tom originally reached out about. And we're going to look into any discounts for him. And then we also promise that we're going to follow up. So again, nobody needed to actually do anything for this. This is just an augmented process that we can create for any emails that are coming in. But so now that we're happy with the classifications, we're happy with the email-generated response that we're going to get, now we can actually build that scalable system. So what we'll do is we will have our trigger set up, which will basically read in all of the emails that we get to the support inbox. And so anything that comes into the inbox will now trigger this workflow. But now that every email that comes in will get classified and will generate a response. But we only want to generate responses if the classification is indicating churn. So we can set that up with some really simple rules. And then we can create a response email that basically augments what a customer service person would do. So again, we'll set this up with our support inbox. We're going to select reply, so it will automatically pull in the information from the sender. We're going to keep the save to draft box checked. So the reason behind that is this is basically that augmented human in the loop. So as we are bringing this system online and we want to keep checking the validity of not only the classifications but also the responses, we'll have somebody who will basically just be able to read this in their inbox, and you'll be able to see that in a second. And then if they're happy with it, they can just push the send button, but they don't have to commit to automating a process before they're fully confident on it. Once they do become confident on it, then we can uncheck this and send automatic replies. And the last step that we want to take is we want to basically notify the team lead of any time where there might be a churn risk. So we will set that up as well. So we are manually putting in an email. So this represents the email that would come in from, or that we would be sending to the team lead. And we're going to put in the subject as the indicates churn and the original email from the sender. And again, we'll set this up with conditions to only run if the person indicates churn. In here, we will uncheck the save to draft because this is an internal email and we're not concerned about potentially not great things being sent out. So we'll double check our workflow. Oh, cool. So for the email that we're sending, that's going to the draft that will be created, again, we're saying take the information from step 3 that was generated in the email response, and this is what's going to be created in the draft step. I want to make sure that our input is from step 2. So any email that comes in that was classified as indicates churn, that will get created here. And final step is every email that comes in will be classified now. So now that we are happy with our workflow, we can give it a name. And we can activate it. All right, so we've just deployed a full production workflow. So now let's give it a test. All right, so I've got a draft email here. Yeah, I can see that. That says, I've been having issues with the speed of my internet recently. I've called your support team a few times, but they've not been able to help. Can you offer me a cheaper rate? If not, I will have to try a competitor. So this is something that should trigger the churn or the indicates churn workflow. And so we're going to send that off to our inbox. And we should see in just a second that email should show in our inbox. And then within a few seconds, in about a minute or so, we should see the draft email get created. All right, so there we go. So now that the email is in our inbox, this is triggering that workflow. So that workflow is listening for new emails to this inbox. And now we're going to go through, do the classification step. If it hits the indicates churn, then it will go down and create a draft email based on the prompt that we had instructed it to create. And then we should also get an email in our demo 1 inbox. Let's see, there we go. Here is the draft email. So let's see. So thank you for bringing your concerns to our attention. We understand how important it is to have the best possible experience. Take your feedback seriously. Sorry that you discontinue our services. Our team is dedicated to providing best service. So you can see that this looks like a good email that if a human were to write, this would be a very thoughtful and considered email that you would potentially get back, but nobody had to do it. This was completely automated that you've already seen, and it only took us about 10 minutes to set up the entire workflow end to end versus having to build a model all by ourselves, which we would still be looking for data right now. And you can see that in the alert, we also got that email there. So that does it for the demo. And I will leave you with just a few things. Cool. So what we did in the demo, so we were able to build a customized email classifier, draft a personalized email response based on the actual content that was in the submission to us, and alerted leadership. But this is just one example of what a workflow system like this can do. This is extremely powerful, where we can take what basically humans were only able to do and machines would kind of struggle with, and we're able to apply them to a number of use cases across the board, especially anything that has to do with text, whether it's written, whether it's online, whether it's voice, video, transcriptions. And so if there are challenges out there that you have with different types of workflows, different types of automation, areas that you've never been able to accomplish before, these are things that we can begin to help with. And if you're interested in trying it, shoot us an email. We'd be happy to show you how it works in the end. And that's it. Thank you. Oh. Certainly.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Very interesting presentation. The question is, the customer asked me about the discount.
Sure.
So, in the that your company has a discount structure. So why not answer the whole question? The whole email was quite compassionate.
Yeah.
It sounded like a human being who wrote it.
Yeah.
But I thought that at least there will be the AI structure, or the platform will be able to read from a discount table,
Yep.
saying, okay, I will offer you 10%. So how
Yeah.
come this did not show up?
So if we had provided those instructions, we would have been able to see that in the response. Just because the response that we created
Alright.
was like pretty generic in create a professional and compassionate email response.
Alright.
We didn't include any specifics on, if the customer says this, offer this type of discount, but we certainly could.
Okay.
And that's something you can automate.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have another question, and it can be answered by either you or Mr. Oric. In your presentation, Mr. Oric, you mentioned that the AI or advanced AI can help businesses. Now, I know for a fact that when it comes, for example, if I want to use an AI system, I know that about 20 years ago or 30 years ago, there was something called decision support system for businesses. I don't have any insight how it used to work, but I know that because my background is also procurement and HR, it would be interesting to have something like that. Now, it seems to me that your system and the ChatGPT, these are the new generation of AI. So if I have a business, for example, and I would like to ask a question, how can I develop my business strategy? As we all know, strategy can be extremely difficult because you have so many alternatives, you have so many variables that can affect your bottom line. So in this case, how can a system like ChatGPT help me in developing my strategy? So I would like to take that question, Mark.
Right. Hey, Hisham, nice to see you here, and great question. So I think that currently the capabilities of ChatGPT has really helped to accelerate and help to really amplify what a human's already able to do, right? So I think that anyone in a particular expert role, the general consensus out there from experts is that what systems like ChatGPT right now is able to provide you is something that looks reasonable for a non-expert, but if you are an expert and looking into it, the expert human level is actually a little bit higher than that, right? So I would expect that an expert human in the role of developing business strategy to be able to use systems like ChatGPT and systems like this to be able to help them get their thoughts onto paper in a lot quicker way and in ways that are a lot more easily communicated to others, right? But it will not currently fulfill that role of creating and ideating that strategy for you, right? And maybe in the next few years we'll be there, but I don't think currently. Yeah.
Within 1 year, we will have this application.
Yes.
Because the difficulty about developing a corporate strategy is you have so many choices, and the variables are alternatives, the options are tremendous. And that's why I was listening to a video clip yesterday, and it showed you that in every stage of your company that you may take a different route, a different perspective. So the iterations that you have to go through is tremendous. And that's why you're absolutely right in saying that, okay, ChatGPT can provide you with a basic strategy that you can look into, but the human input will be quite important just to go through the different options. But it helps you to kickstart your corporate strategy.
So ChatGPT or other large language model, they are the foundational model. So a lot of startup company within 5 to 20 startup company every year is generated based on this. So for example, this is the example that you mentioned is a business use case tailored to your needs. For example, so once I train my large language model, I have it. Then I can take all the information about the strategy or the legal document, for example, train it, fine-tune the model based on the customer need, and then you have, with ChatGPT, you have an expert legal or strategy matter that you can ask, and then you can It can create all the documents for you based on the information and your preference as well, because these also chatbots, or even, for example, this application that has been built or it will be built, it will be based on the customer needs. So, for example, in your company, you have a certain strategy, or you prefer a certain model, or a certain, for example, let's say legal case, for example, based on UK legal documents. So you will feed all the legal documents and cases based, for example, if you are an energy company, it will be fed and it will be fine-tuned using your large language model, whether it's GPT-3, whether it's new generated large language model, and then you will have the output based your need. And it will not be able also to create for you the email. It will generate for you the whole draft of the document and the strategy. And then you will just read it, and then you will have the human expert just in the loop to make sure that these are the direction that we would like to take.
Thank you.
Amazing work. From a healthcare perspective, I know a lot of the solutions are customizable at the end of the day, but one of the drawbacks we face in healthcare is the lack of human interaction, the rapport that you have to build with the customers, because you're looking at a different segment. So what's your experience in healthcare sector using your solution?
Yeah, so certainly healthcare is one of those areas where I think a lot of customization will be needed in terms of these models. And I agree with Abdesam that a huge opportunity in the future is in taking these models and customizing it so that it really understands the full context of your business and operations, right? And yeah, in healthcare, the human touch is something that can't be replaced right now, especially when it comes to patient care. I think again, a lot of these systems can help with those bits of the support process and the hospital processes that are complementing existing humans and being able to amplify them in their existing work, right? So we can maybe imagine a support agent or a customer care representative being able to really handle a lot more patients and maintain the relationship with a lot of patients because they have the help of these models generating and analyzing and really learning about and coming up with drafts of personalized messages and conversations with patients, right?
Just curious, I'm sure you speak Chinese, but if this demo were done in Chinese, could they, I know the Anglo-Saxon world is the most advanced. How the Chinese world or the Indian world, can you do the same demo you do it in Chinese, will they come out as good as this?
Right. So I think Abdesam also had a great point about this in her talk, right? Which is that it really depends on the data that's available out there. For I think in terms of the internet data that these models are trained on, English by far the most. Chinese, I think there is sufficient enough data to actually drive a lot of good decisions and good text generation in these models. But when it comes to these more and more niche languages, I think we still have quite a ways to go before these models are able to really reach the same quality as English text understanding and generation for all languages in the world. Right?
Do you think you can use this entire system in order to then provide that wrapper of translation on top of what's generated in English? And therefore use the English-based model but localize it to whatever country you want? Do you think that that's something that can be envisioned? Because it seems like that's part of the question.
I think it's definitely something that you can try, and I know that people do this. But again, I think even for the minority languages, when it comes to really underrepresented languages on the internet, even a lot of state-of-the-art translation models don't work very well on those, right? Because I think a lot of the translation models actually rely on the large language models to make the translations, right? But I think for some of the major languages, ones with a good enough internet footprint, this is definitely certainly something that's possible to do. whether the results will be as good as if you were understanding and processing this text in that native language could be good, could not be good for certain use cases, right? You can definitely think of certain idioms in languages that are not your own, which might not translate so well to a different language, right? But for a lot of major cases, it may work to a good enough degree.
What's a current good use case of the current product in, let's say, the UAE region? Like, where would you feel like this would be the best position currently to provide support or basically support for whatever ministry or whatever it is that you're thinking of?
That would be something that I would love to talk to anyone in this room about. So I really do believe that these models have a great potential to bring a lot of good to societies and different countries, not only the countries that are the most advanced in terms of AI development. But yeah, we're going to be around all day. Feel free to talk with us. Let us know your use cases. We'd be really happy to talk to you and see if we can address them for you. Right?
Maybe one question from me. So this got me thinking that on the one hand, there's been a lot of conversation around a small number of these large pre-trained models. And then of course we often see the picture as a small number of models and a large cross-section of startup applications being brought on them, right? But the reverse may also become true, that for a given application, there are a number of large models that you may connect to as a backend, right? So that maybe to be a bit more specific, right? Since multiple people here have asked about support for different languages, how do you see a system like this being able to support different language operations by, say, switching in and out the type of model that's being used, whether that's perhaps it's a proprietary API service, perhaps it's a on-premise hosted service. There might be different needs, there might be different ways to connect the technology pieces up. That is a question I'm interested to hear your thoughts on.
That's a great question, right? So I definitely believe in a future where there will be many of these large language models around, right? And that the most likely way forward is for certain models to be better at certain tasks or certain areas of text than others, right? So I think we already see this with certain large language models being specialized to science, for example, from Meta and models specialized to certain languages as well. And in fact, in our current platform already, we are sourcing from a number of different models in the backend. And yeah, so I think this is definitely the way the world will evolve, right? Yes.
So what I like about it is the user experience, right? It's very simple, and it's basically a plug-and-play kind of thing, which is, it's a connection with the business world, because most of the business line managers, they lack the capability of understanding what goes. So it's easy to be educated, or it's a tool to educate business line managers to kind of address those. But the question is there any dashboard? Because there's always a margin of error, right? Is there a reference place for the custodian of those systems to go there and check that everything is in place? Because at the end of the day, the customer is always right, and if someone come out, so is there any aspect to govern the system itself?
Yeah, definitely. Governance of AI, especially when it comes to these critical processes, are extremely important. So when it comes to observability, you as individuals as well as companies, whether you're a leadership or an employee, definitely want the highest level of transparency and observability into the systems that you are running, right? And those are definitely features that are on our current roadmap that will be available and made available to any of our customers using this platform, right? Yes.
Hi. Despite the fact that the Gulf region, the whole population speaks good or have good command of the English language. Now, the only issue that I can see is that for the older generation that doesn't speak English, implementing a system like that, although it is quite impressive, it uses natural language. Now, do you have any plans in the future to implement Arabic language in collaboration with Noor, as mentioned by Dr. Tissam? This is where I see a collaboration in future, and I'm not trying to hint at anything, but I'm seeing that since that we already have a Arabic platform, so is this something that you want to consider?
So just for my understanding, do you have your own large language model, or you are building this at home based on GPT-3 or GPT-2 existing large language model?
So we don't use GPT-3 or GPT-2, but we do start from existing language models, and we fine-tune them, and we customize them to work well for business-oriented use cases. Right? And we believe that in the future, the majority of the ways that models will be used will be like this, where I don't think it will be a great idea for many extremely similar large models to all be trained and all compete with each other because, as we can see, the energy costs and the sustainability is not really there to back that kind of strategy, right? So we think that there will be a smaller set of larger models on which future innovations will be built, and these models will be customized for one use case over another, and maybe there will be several generations of customization on these that branch out to every corner of use cases and data that's out there. Right?
Just say from a constraint, you are absolutely right, but all the previous large language models up to Bloom, all of them, they are trained based on the old scale. Okay, so I am with you with the point that you consider that you will use small scale model considering the sustainability aspect. But all the previous large language model have been trained based on the old scaling law. And the only available one is Chinchilla, is with respect with the new scaling law, and the performance, it's outperform considering the GPT-3 models. Yes, it is smaller size. Yes, there will be many large language model, but the existing use cases that it will be developed, it will differ between one model and other because the performance is different. And I think and I believe that we are going to the era that the publication about the performance of each model will be less because of the competition between big companies. For example, usually they detail what is the tokenizer, what is the big bench, and now, for example, they will be a scarcity in terms of the publication and the information how these models has been developed. So in terms of the sustainability, just to go back to the same point, yes, but I think we will try to train it on different models just to check which is the best use case for which model. And currently, this is not available. And just to comment on your point, for example, for Noor, and I do believe, and we have as an Arab community, okay, to collaborate with the data, because, for example, in Egypt, they have a lot of Arabic data. For example, in Jordan, in Morocco, they publish and they write. They have university, they have articles in Arab, written in Arabic language model. But for us, for example, in UAE, we have, in Saudi Arabia, we have, but I think it is very important to collaborate with each other, put the data as an open source, and even we can train, gather the resources and the power, and we train, for example, a large Arabic language model and put it in public for everyone they can use and build similar to GPT-3 and others.
Thank you.
All right, there. Excellent discussion there. We went over time quite a bit in a very good way. Thank you everyone who contributed questions to this very fascinating discussion. And now I would like to announce that it is actually the lunch break, and I know I'm going to prompt Philip in the back of the room. I believe the restaurant is the Rosalina restaurant in that direction. Is that correct? So will you be able to lead them? Yes. Right, and let me just check that schedule to make sure. Actually, the next talk starts at 1:30 p.m. Sorry, Philip, it's 1:30 p.m. We'll have the next talk back in here. So we have about 1 hour and 40 minutes for the lunch break at the Rosalina restaurant. Philip will lead the way. Also, I believe that Ulrich, if I may ask, will your company be using the demonstration screen today?
Oh yeah, I think we'll, if anyone wants to just play around with our models, we're just gonna be there. See us in the back. Shoot us an email to the automated workflow, right?
Right, they'll be positioned at the back of the room at the TV screen over there. Okay, so thank you all, and it is time for lunch.